Zosimov was a big fat man, with a puffy, colourlessly pale and smooth-shaven face, and straight, very fair hair. He wore spectacles, and on one of his fat, swollen fingers there was a large gold ring. He must have been about 27. He was dressed in a light, capacious and stylish paletot, light-coloured summer trousers, and in general everything about him was simple, stylish and brand new. His linen was immaculate, his watch chain massive. His manner was slow, giving an impression of being at once languid and at the same time studiedly familiar. Although he did his utmost to conceal them, his pretensions to superiority showed through at every moment. Everyone who had anything to do with him found him a hard man to get along with, but said that he knew his job. "I've been to your place twice today, brother, you see. He's woken up," cried Razumikin. I see. Well, so what are we feeling like now, eh?" Zosimov said, as he turned to Raskolnikov, peering at him fixedly and coming to sit at his feet on the sofa, where he immediately sprawled into a lounging position, as far as was possible. "Oh, he's in a constant fit of spleen," Razumikin went on. "We changed his linen just now, and he practically burst into tears." "That's natural. You could have left the linen until later if he didn't want it changed. His pulse is first-rate. I expect you've still got a bit of a headache, eh?" "I'm all right. I'm perfectly all right," Raskolnikov said insistently and with irritation. Suddenly he sat up on the sofa, his eyes flashing, but immediately collapsed back onto the pillow and turned his face to the wall. Zosimov was observing him fixedly. "Very good. All's as it should be," he said languidly. "Has he had anything to eat?" They told him and asked him what sort of food should be given. "Oh, he can have anything he wants. Soup, tea, no mushrooms or cucumbers, of course. Oh, yes, and beef's not a good idea either, But what's the point of my sitting here chattering away like this?" He exchanged glances with Razumikin. "No medicine, no nothing, and tomorrow I'll look in again. Perhaps even later on today. Yes, why not?" "Tomorrow evening I shall take him out for a walk," Razumikin said decisively. "We'll go to Yusupov Park and then look at the Palais de Cristal." "I wouldn't have him up and about tomorrow, although a little... Well, we'll see later on." "Oh, what a pity. I'm giving a housewarming party this evening. It's just a couple of yards from here. I wish he could come too. He could lie in our midst on the sofa. You'll come, won't you?" Razumikin said suddenly, turning to Zosimov, "Don't forget now, you've promised." "I may look in a bit later on. What do you have planned?" "Oh, nothing. Tea, vodka, herring. There's to be a pie. Just some friends getting together." "Who exactly?" "Well, they're all from around here, and they're most of them new acquaintances, to tell you the truth, except perhaps for old uncle, and he's new too. He only arrived in St. Petersburg yesterday, some wretched business or other. I see him about once in every 5 years." "Who is he?" "Oh, he's been vegetating all his life as a district postmaster. He draws a miserable little pension, 65 a year. It's hardly worth talking about. I'm actually rather fond of him. Porfiry Petrovitch will be coming. He's the head of our local criminal investigation department. A trained lawyer. Oh, you know him. Is he some kind of relative of yours too?" "Only of the most distant kind, but why are you frowning? You mean to say that just because the two of you once had a swearing match, you may not come?" "I don't give a spit about him." "Ah, so much the better then. Well, and then there'll be some students, a teacher, a certain government clerk, a certain musician, an officer, Zamyotov." "I say, would you mind telling me what you or he," Zosimov nodded at Raskolnikov, "can possibly have in common with a fellow like Zamyotov?" "Oh, these fussy folk. Principles. You operate on principles as though they were mechanical springs. You don't even dare to turn round of your own accord. In my view, the man's all right. That's the only principle I go on, and I won't hear another word against him. Zamyotov's a splendid chap." "He's got an itchy palm." "So what if he has? I don't give a spit. What of it, anyway?" Razumikin exclaimed suddenly, getting inordinately worked up. "Did I praise him to you for having an itchy palm? All I said was that he's all right in his own way." To be quite honest, if one goes into all the ins and outs of everyone, are there really going to be all that many good people left? I mean, I'm certain that no one would give so much as one baked onion for me, entrails and all, and even then, only if you were thrown in as well. That's not enough. I'll give 2 for you. Well, I'd only give 1 for you. Zamyotov's still a little boy, and I'll give his hair another pull, because he must be drawn along, not pushed away. If you push a man away, you'll never set him on the right path. And the same is even truer of a boy. With a boy, you have to be twice as careful. Oh, you progressive blockheads, you don't know a thing. You've no respect for others, you've no respect for yourselves, but since you're asking, yes, we may very well have a certain matter in common. I'd be most interested to hear about it. It's all to do with that case about the painter, the decorator, that is. We'll get him out of trouble. Actually, he's not in any danger now. The whole thing's quite obvious. All we need is some more steam. What decorator is this? What? Didn't I tell you about him? I didn't. Oh, no, that's right. I only told you at the beginning. You see, it's about this murder there's been. The old woman pawnbroker, the civil servant's widow. Well, now there's a decorator mixed up in it. Oh, I heard about that murder before you did. I'm actually rather interested in the case. Partly because of in certain circumstances, and I've been reading about it in the newspapers. And now, Lizaveta was murdered too, Nastasia blurted out suddenly, turning to Raskolnikov. She had remained in the room all the time, huddled up beside the door, listening. Lizaveta, Raskolnikov murmured, in a barely audible voice. Yes, the market woman. You know what I mean, don't you? She used to come in downstairs, mended a shirt for you once too. Raskolnikov turned to the wall, where on the dirty yellow wallpaper, with its little white flowers, he selected one clumsy white flower in particular, which had small brown lines in it, and began to examine it to see how many leaves it had, how many serrations there were on each leaf, and how many lines. He felt that his hands and feet had gone numb, as though he had lost the use of them, but he did not even try to move, and stared persistently at the flower instead. Well, what about the decorator? Zosimov said, interrupting Nastasia's chatter with a peculiarly marked displeasure. Nastasia sighed and fell silent. They've got him on the list of suspects too, Razumikin went on animatedly. On what evidence? Oh, they don't need evidence, but as a matter of fact, it's the evidence that won't stand up, and what you've got to prove is that it's not evidence at all. It's exactly how they behaved at the beginning when they arrested those 2 other fellows and put them on the list of suspects. What are their names again? Oh, yes, Koch and Pestriakov. Pah! What a stupid way it's being handled. It gives one a nasty feeling, even though one's been not involved. The Pestriakov chap may be looking in at my place this evening. Actually, Rodya, you already know about this business. It happened before you got ill, just the evening before you fainted in the bureau, when people were talking about it there. Zosimov gave Raskolnikov an inquisitive look. Raskolnikov did not move. Do you know something, Razumikin? I've been keeping an eye on you. You're a busybody, Zosimov observed. That's as maybe, but we'll get him out of it all the same, Razumikin exclaimed, banging his fist on the table. I mean, what is it that's so offensive about the whole thing? I mean, it's not the fact that they're lying. One can always forgive a man for telling lies. Lying's a harmless activity because it leads to the truth. No, what's offensive is that they're lying and making a fetish out of their own inventions. I have a lot of respect for Porfiry, but, I mean, for example, what set them off on the wrong foot to start with? The door was closed, but when they got there with the yard keeper, it was open. Right, they said. Koch and Pestriakov must have done it. That's the sort of logic you follow, you see? Don't get so worked up. They've simply been detained, that's all. It's inevitable. Actually, I've met Koch. Why, he turned out to have been buying up unredeemed pledges from the old woman, didn't he, eh? Yeah, he's some kind of swindler. He buys up promissory notes as well. A professional. Oh, to the devil with him. No, what I'm trying to say is, there's something about it that makes me angry. You know what I mean? It's that rotten, stinking, fossilized routine of theirs that makes me angry. Yet here, in this one case alone, one might open up a whole new approach. From the psychological information alone, it would be possible to show how to get onto the right track. We've got facts, they say. But facts aren't everything. At least half the battle consists on how one makes use of them. And that's what you're able to do? Well, I mean, can't one just stay silent when one knows instinctively that one should be of assistance on the case? Oh, damn it. Look, are you familiar with the details of the case? I'm waiting to hear about the decorator. Oh, yes, that's right. Well, then listen. Here's the story. Just 3 days after the murder, in the morning, when they were still wasting time with Koch and Pestriakov, even though those fellows had accounted for every single move they'd made, it's so obvious, it's crying out loud. A most unexpected fact popped up. A certain peasant named Dushkin, the landlord of a drinking den opposite the building in question, appeared at the bureau with a jewel case containing some gold earrings, and launched into a long tale. This fellow came running into my place, he said, 2 days ago, just after 8 o'clock in the evening. The day and the hour, you get the point? A decorator he was by trade, and he'd been into my establishment earlier on, in the afternoon. Mikolai, they call him. He'd brought me this box with some gold earrings and precious stones, and he wanted me to give him 2 roubles on account for them. But when I asked him where he'd got them from, he said he'd found them on the pavement. I didn't inquire any further. This was Dushkin speaking, but let him have a ticket. A rouble, that is, because I figured that if he didn't pawn it with me, he'd find someone else to pawn it with. It would be all the same. He'd drink the money away, and the things would be better with me. The further away you put it, the closer it is to hand, as they say. And I thought, if anything turns up, or I hear any rumours, I'll take it to the bureau. But of course, this was all a load of moonshine. He was lying like a horse, for I know this Dushkin. He's a pawnbroker himself and hides stolen goods, and he won't go diddling Mikolai out of an article worth 30 roubles merely in order to take it in. He was just scared, that's all. But to the devil with that. Listen, Dushkin went on. Now, I've known this peasant, Mikolai Dementiev, since he was little. We come from the same province, Ryazan, and the same district, Zaraysk. And although Mikolai's no drunkard, he likes a drop now and again, and I knew he was working in that building, doing the place up, together with Mitrai. They're both from the same village. Once he'd got the ticket, he immediately had it changed into coins, drank 2 glasses of vodka straight off, took his change, and made off. I didn't see Mitrai with him at the time. Well, the next day we heard that Alyona Ivanovna and her sister, Lizaveta Ivanovna, had been murdered with an axe. I knew them, sir, and it was then that I suddenly had my suspicions about the earrings, because I knew that the old woman used to pay out money on pledged items. I went to their house and began to make cautious inquiries, softly, and the first thing I asked was whether Mikolai was there. Mitrai told me that Mikolai had gone off on a binge, and had come home at dawn drunk, and had spent about 10 minutes there, and then gone out again, and that he, Mitrai, hadn't seen him again after that, and was finishing the work by himself. The place they'd been doing up is on the same staircase as the murdered woman's apartment, on the 2nd floor. When I heard all that, I didn't let on to anyone about it at the time, and this was still Dushkin speaking, but I found out everything I could about the murders, and came home still with the same suspicions. Then at 8 o'clock in the morning, he's talking about the 3rd day after the murder, you understand, lo and behold, I saw Mikolai coming into my place. He wasn't sober, but he wasn't particularly drunk either, and he was able to understand what you said to him. He sat down on one of the benches and didn't say anything. Now, apart from him in the place at that time, there was only one customer, and a fellow I knew, a friend of mine, who was asleep on a bench, and our 2 boys, sir. Have you seen Mitrai? I asked. No, he said, I haven't. And you've not been here? I've not been here, he said, since the day before yesterday. And where did you spend last night? At Pesky, with some friends in Kolomna. And where did you get those earrings? I found them on the pavement. It sounded fishy the way he said it. He didn't look at me. Have you heard what happened that very same evening at that same time on that same staircase? No, he said, I haven't. But he was listening, his eyes were staring out of his head, and he suddenly turned as white as chalk. As I was telling him about it, I saw him reach for his hat and start to get up. At that point, I tried to keep him from going. Wait, Nikolai, I said. What about a quick one? And I winked to one of my boys as a sign for him to hold the door, and came out from behind the bar. Then he shot out of my place, ran off down the street, and disappeared into a side lane. I haven't seen him since. By that time, my suspicions were confirmed, because you could tell a mile off he'd got something to hide. I bet he had, Zosimov said. Wait, you haven't heard the end of it. It goes without saying that they were immediately off at the double, hunting for Nikolai. Dushkin was put in detention and his premises searched. Mitrey got the same treatment. The friends in Kolomna were cleaned out too, but then suddenly, the day before yesterday, Nikolai was brought in. They'd arrested him in a roadhouse near the gate. He turned up there, taken off the crucifix he wore, the silver one it was, and asked for a glass of vodka in exchange for it. They gave him it. A few minutes later, the woman went out to the cowshed and looked through a crack in the wall. In the barn next door, he had tied his sash to one of the beams and had made a noose. He'd got up on a chopping block and was trying to put the noose around his neck. The woman screamed at the top of her voice, and people came running. So that's the sort of fellow you are. Take me to a police station, he said, and I'll confess to the lot. Well, they took him to a police station, the one here, that is, with all the appropriate honours. Well, they asked him this and they asked him that, who he was, what he did, how old he was, 22, and so on and so forth. To the question, when you and Mitrey were working together, did you see anyone on the staircase at such and such a time? He replied, well, all sorts of people must have been going up and down, but we never paid any attention to them. Didn't you hear any noises, for example? No, we didn't hear anything unusual. Well, were you aware, Nikolai, that on that very day at such and such an hour, a certain widow and her sister were robbed and murdered? I didn't know anything about it. The first I heard of it was from Afanasy Pavlich, the day before yesterday, in the drinking den. And where did you find the earrings? I found them on the pavement. Why didn't you show up for work with Mitrey the next day? Because I was off on a binge. Where did you have your binge? Oh, this place and that place. Why did you run away from Dushkin? Because I was dead scared. And what were you scared of? That they'd think I did it. Why were you scared of that if you don't feel guilty of having done anything wrong? Believe it or not, Zosimov, that question was put to him literally in those words. I know it for a fact. I was given a reliable account of it. What do you say to that, eh? Yes. Well, they do have some evidence after all. It's not the evidence I'm talking about. It's that question and the whole way they perceive their role. Oh, to the devil with it. Well, so they kept on and on at him, piling on the pressure. And finally he confessed. I didn't find it on the pavement. I found it in the place Mitrey and I were decorating. Be more explicit. Well, Mitrey and I had been painting that place all day. It was now 8 o'clock in the evening, and we were getting ready to go home, when Mitrey picked up a paintbrush and daubed some paint on my face with it. Then he ran away, and I went after him, shouting fit to burst, as if I was coming off the staircase, and turning into the gateway, I ran smack into a yard keeper and some other gentlemen who were with him. I don't remember how many of them there were. The yard keeper yelled at me, and so did another yard keeper, and the wife of one of them came out and started yelling at us too, and then a gentleman and lady came in through the gateway, and he yelled at us too, because Mitka and I were lying in the way. I grabbed Mitka by the hair and knocked him down and began pummelling him. And Mitka did the same to me, but we weren't doing it in a nasty sort of way, more like two friends having a playful scrap. Then Mitka got away from me and ran off down the street, and I set off after him. But I couldn't catch him up, so I went back on my own to the place we'd been decorating. There was some clearing up needed to be done. I began to get on with it, waiting all the while in case Mitre came back. Well, by the door in the passageway, in the corner, behind the wall, I stepped on this little box. I looked and saw it was wrapped up in paper. I took off the paper, and there were these teeny little tiny hooks, and I unfastened them, and in the box were the earrings. Behind the door? He was lying behind the door. Behind the door? Raskolnikov suddenly said, looking at Razumikin with a dull, frightened stare, raising himself on the sofa slowly with one arm. Yes, what is it? What's wrong with you? Why are you acting like that? Razumikin said, also getting up. Never mind, Raskolnikov answered, in a voice that was barely audible, sinking back on the pillow and turning round again to face the wall. For a while no one said anything. He must have nodded off and had a dream, Razumikin said at last, directing an inquiring gaze at Zosimov, who gave a slight, negative move of the head. Well, go on then, said Zosimov. What happened after that? After that? Oh, as soon as he saw the earrings, he forgot all about the apartment, and Mitka ran off to Dushkin's establishment and, as you know, got a rouble out of him, lying to him that he'd found the rings on the pavement, and immediately went off on a binge. As for the murder, all he would do was keep on repeating what he'd said before, I don't know a thing about it. The first I heard of it was the day before yesterday. And why didn't you report here earlier? I was scared. Why did you want to hang yourself? Because of the thought. What thought? That they'd think I'd done it. Well, that's the whole story. Now, what do you suppose they made of that? Well, there's no need to suppose. There's a trail of sorts, a piece of incriminating evidence. They can't very well let your decorator go free now, can they? But I mean, they practically identified him as the murderer. They haven't a shadow of a doubt. Nonsense, you're just getting yourself worked up. What about the earrings? You must admit that if those earrings were from the old woman's trunk, fell into Nikolai's hands on the very day of the murder, at the very hour it took place, they must have got there somehow. That means quite a lot in an investigation like this one. You ask how they got there? How they got there? Razumikin exclaimed. Can it really be that you, a doctor, who has as his principal obligation the study of man, and who possesses more opportunity than anyone else of studying human nature, are really unable to see, with all this information before you, what kind of a man this Nikolai is? Can you really not see at a first glance that all the evidence he gave during his interrogation is the most sacred truth? Those earrings fell into his hands exactly as he swore they did. He stepped on the box and picked it up. The most sacred truth? But he himself confessed he had been lying right from the word go. Listen to me. Listen carefully, all of them. The yard-keeper, Koch, Pestryakov, the other yard-keeper, the wife of the first yard-keeper, the artisan's wife who had been sitting in the yard-keeper's room at the time, the court councillor, Kryukov, who at that very moment had alighted from a cab and was walking in through the gateway arm in arm with a lady, they all of them, 8 or 9 witnesses, that is, swear unanimously that Nikolai had forced Dmitri down to the ground, was lying on top of him, pummelling him, while Dmitri had seized hold of Nikolai by the hair and was pummelling him back. They were lying across the road, blocking the way. People were shouting and cursing at them from every side while they, like little children, that was the actual expression used by those who were present, lay on top of each other, yelping, scuffling and laughing, each of them laughing to make the other laugh, with the most ridiculous faces. And then they ran away down the street, chasing each other like kids. Got it? Now, take careful note. The bodies in the apartment were still warm. Do you hear? Warm when they found them. If those two, or even just Nikolai on his own, had killed anyone and broken open any chests, or had merely taken part in some robbery or other, permit me to ask you one simple question. Would a state of mind like that, characterized as it was by yelping, laughter, childish scrapping in the entranceway, fit in with axes, blood, villainous cunning, deliberation, robbery? Imagine the scene. They've only just committed the murders some 5 or 10 minutes previously, because it turns out that the bodies were still warm. and suddenly leaving the bodies in the apartment with the door open, and knowing that people had just passed that way, they go out and sprawl around in the roadway, like little children, laughing and drawing everyone's attention to themselves, for there are 10 unanimous witnesses who say that they did. Well, there's no denying it's a bit odd. I suppose it's impossible, but no, brother, no buts. If the earrings, which turned up in Nikolai's hands at the very day and hour the murder took place, really constitute such an important piece of evidence against him, though it can be directly explained by his testimony and is thus contestable evidence, then we must also take into consideration the exonerating evidence, since it is also irrefutable. Now, being familiar with the character of our jurisprudence, what do you suppose? Is it willing to accept, is it even capable of accepting, a piece of evidence of this kind, one founded purely on a simple psychological impossibility, on a simple state of mind, as being irrefutable, and having the effect of demolishing all the incriminating and circumstantial evidence, whatever it may be? No, it is not. It is not willing to do so on any account, for a box was found, and a man tried to hang himself, something he would never have done if he had not felt himself to be guilty. There's the capital question. There's what makes me get so worked up. Perhaps now you'll understand. Yes, I can see that you're worked up. Wait, though, I forgot to ask. What proof is there that the box containing the earrings really did come from the old woman's chest? Oh, it's been proved, Razumikin answered, frowning, and almost reluctantly. Koch recognised the earrings and was able to identify the man who had pawned them, and he positively confirmed that they belonged to him. That's not so good. Now, something else. Did anyone see Nikolai during the time that Koch and Pestriakov were going upstairs? Can't that be proved somehow? That's just it. Nobody saw him, Razumikin replied with vexation. That's the very devil of it. Not even Koch and Pestriakov noticed him when they were going upstairs, though their testimony wouldn't carry much weight now in any case. We saw that the door to the apartment was open, they said, and that work must be going on there, but we continued on our way up and didn't pay attention, and we don't remember whether there was actually workmen inside at that moment or not. So the only exonerating evidence is that the two men had been pummelling each other and laughing. I suppose that's firm enough proof, but let me ask you now, how do you account for the whole sequence of events? How do you explain his finding the earrings, if he really did find them in the way he says he did? How do I explain it? There's nothing to explain. The matter's quite clear. At any rate, the path of inquiry that ought to be followed is clear and proven, and it's the box that has done the proving for us. If it was the real murderer who dropped those earrings, the murderer was inside the apartment when Koch and Pestriakov knocked at the door and had fastened the bolt. Koch was stupid and went downstairs. At that point, the murderer left the apartment and went downstairs too, because he had no other means of exit. On his way down, he hid from Koch, Pestriakov and the yard keeper by ducking into the empty apartment, the instant after Dmitri and Nikolai had gone running out of it. He waited behind the door while the yard keeper and the others were going upstairs, waited until their footsteps had died away, and then took himself off downstairs as calm as you please. At the very moment Dmitri and Nikolai were running out into the street, everyone had gone their separate ways, and there was no one left in the gateway. He may have been seen, but no one paid him any attention, as there are always so many people going in and out. As for the box, it fell out of his pocket as he was standing behind the door, and he didn't notice, as he had other things on his mind. But the box offers clear proof that it was precisely there that he stood. There you have it. Clever. Yes, brother, but it won't do. It's just a little too clever. Why do you say that? Because it all fits together too well. It's too neat, like something out of a play. You really are the most... Razumikin began to exclaim, but at that moment the door opened, and there entered a new dramatis persona who was not familiar to a single one of those present.